Today on Producer Points, we're joined by a music producer, songwriter, and engineer whose creativity knows no bounds. He's collaborated with artists like Renee Rapp, Alexander 23, Grace Enger, and FRANKIE, as well as global stars like Enrique Iglesias, One Direction, Martin Solveig, and Dillon Francis, consistently delivering music that resonates across genres. His creative versatility is not just limited to producing chart-topping hits. He's also known for his significant contributions to TV and film soundtracks, as well as captivating musicals, showcasing an impressive breadth of talent. Beyond his professional achievements, he's celebrated for his down-to-earth personality, kindness, and humor, making him a beloved figure in the music community. Get ready to explore the stories behind his successful projects and dive deep into the world of an incredibly talented individual, Petro AP.
Let's go.
Dude.
Stunning stuff.
Thank you, man. Dude,
That
thank
was
you
really
so
nice.
much for doing this. I always
you.
love hanging out.
I mean, you know me, my kindness is, and my humor.
Yes, that's
it makes me happy to be here.
good. This is why, I wanted you to come because I was like, you know what, if anything, I'm going to have a great conversation with this human.
Nice.
And what's funny is I was thinking about it. We've been friends for, 5-6 years now?
100%.
And we've never really hung out one-on-one.
We have not.
Yeah, it's always
No.
in group settings.
Always in group settings.
Yeah, and
definitely at a party at my place or a party at your place.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it goes. Like your
A lot
place
of party
DJs,
hangs. Yep.
It's really nice. And that was like the one thing too where, you stand out because my wife Laurel, whom I love dearly, just never remembers anyone.
Sure. Oh, wow.
Always remembered you.
Lovely
Yeah.
person.
It helped that we went to your house.
That's true.
But still, you'd be
That's
surprised.
I'll take it. No, that's fair. But I mean, I got roommates, and she
Right.
sounds like she remembered me over
Yes.
the roommates.
Oh,
so
actually,
I take that as a compliment.
She would not be able to point out any of your roommates.
Okay,
No
fair
chance.
enough.
No chance. Are you still at the house over there?
Yeah, in Highland Park.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I miss Highland Park so
Highland Park
much.
is great.
I was just there Saturday. I went to Hermosillo.
Nice.
I love
There we go.
Hermosillo. It's have you had the burger there?
I have not had the burger there. I've had the spaghetti there.
The
Spaghetti
spaghetti.
and meatballs.
I didn't know that. Is that like
They
a
do. It's they do it one night a week.
Okay.
I forget one night, but
Yeah.
it is top notch.
Yeah. So I don't go
Yes.
there at nights anymore.
Okay, fair enough. That's right. Yep. You got the kid.
I'm there on the weekends. But man, the burger there is I think it's one of, if not my favorite burger in LA.
Interesting. You go to
It's-
Goldburger down the street ever?
Yeah, I like theirs better. I love
Okay.
Goldburger.
No,
Don't
I
get me
like
wrong.
that energy a lot because
Yeah.
I will walk to Goldburger very frequently with my roomies. We'll be like, yo, let's go to Goldburger.
Yeah.
And we'll just walk. And it's maybe 8-minute walk to
Yeah,
Goldburger.
yeah.
Next time we're extending the walk, we're going to Hermosillo. We're getting this burger you're talking
Yeah,
about. That's
it's
exciting.
So good. It's every time I get it, I'm just it's consistently good and it's not super expensive.
No, that's great. Literally
Yeah.
the other day, it's funny you mentioned this. What day is today? Today's Monday. On Saturday, I was hanging out at home, and then my roommate Ari's like, yo, let's go to Goldburger. Let's get a burger. I'm like, great, let's do it. Let me finish working. And we leave at 8:30. We walk to Goldburger, get there at 9:05, closed.
Yeah.
We're like, geez, okay, really craving a burger. Let's walk towards York more. And we're we'll find something to eat. And we ended up going to Tennessee Hot Chicken.
Yeah, that place is great.
Great.
Yeah.
Great chicken burgers,
Yeah.
sat there, and it was
Yeah.
right next to Hermosillo.
Yeah.
Looking back, if we'd gone one more door down, we would have got that burger.
I think Hermosillo, they closed their kitchen around that time too. I
Okay,
don't know
okay,
exactly
okay,
when,
interesting.
but they closed it at
Okay.
9 or 10.
Interesting.
But seriously, great burger and the pickled fries or the pickle chips, the fried
I
deep
love
fried
pickle
pickles.
anything. Big pickle fan.
Best deep fried pickles I've ever had.
You know what you get down with, and you turned me on to this spot, Highland
What?
Park Burger Vibes, is Penny's.
Oh, Penny's is incredible.
That place, I drove by it all the time, and I was like, this is so random, I'm never gonna
Yeah.
go there. And then you're like, no, Petro, you gotta go to this
Yeah.
place. It's a killer burger, killer burrito, fries,
Yeah, yeah.
kind of standard, kind of divey, dinery to
It's
go.
that classic Los Angeles family owned burger shop that we have so many
Good
of.
spot.
Yeah. Dude, I crave that burger.
Yeah, those are crazy prices.
Yeah. No, because they're so
good
cheap.
prices,
It's a
yeah.
community spot and
Yeah.
it's so good. Dude, well, I
All
mean,
right, yeah.
how are you? How are things? How's the new year?
Things are good. The
yeah.
new year is good.
Yeah, sessions starting to get off? Or
Sessions are getting off.
Yeah.
We're ripping and rocking. Generally, I'm pretty good.
Yeah, busy.
Yeah.
Are you doing sessions most days? Are you like I do sessions 3 to 4 times a week? What's kind of your
Yeah, I'm hitting sessions 2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Obviously working on things and fleshing them out when I'm not doing
Right.
sessions.
Yeah.
Or generating ideas.
I mean, that's the thing about producers. It's that's different than songwriters. Songwriters should be in sessions every day,
Yeah.
but us, it's especially and we're going to talk about the many other things you do besides, pop production, but producing, anywhere from 2 to 4 times a week as a producer to me is like the way to go.
Yeah.
Because like otherwise like things just start piling up.
It's too much.
Right. Like when you're early on in your career, you don't have like so many records that like are coming out. Like, yeah, do sessions every day, but like, like me, and I know you're the same, like you have artists that you work with and are like, okay, like I have like an EP to do. I have this person's thing to do, and I can only do so many new sessions.
Yeah.
And the burnout is real.
Notes to be done.
Yeah.
Like jumping back in with somebody.
Oh yeah, dude. It's like, it's never ending.
It really is a dance though. Cause I feel like sometimes, you'll have a week where it's like a lighter load of sessions and you're like, okay, I did kind of have like a little more downtime.
Yeah.
And then the following week you'll have like tons of sessions. You're like, okay, I'm like overloaded.
Yeah.
It's constantly being adjusted.
Yeah. I mean, that's what, and then people cancel, that's like, I think what I've learned is having to be flexible and adaptable in this industry.
Yeah.
Where, the rain last week, like really threw me off. I'm like super behind on work.
Interesting.
This week. And like, I'm like, okay, like I have this day and this day where I can like sort of catch up and like, okay, I probably have to work a night or two, even though I hate doing that, but like.
Sure. No, you got to sometimes do those late nighters.
It's just, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But dude, I want to learn about your journey into music production. Give me the short, the long version, whichever version you want to say.
All right. I'm going to start off by saying I'm pretty nervous here being just doing this podcast. I haven't done one of these before. So please take that into consideration.
That's fine. It's just me and you having a conversation.
Great. Cool. All right. Ever since he was a young boy, Petro AP has always wanted a career in politics. Or no. I grew up like singing songs.
Right.
And I had a band in middle school, and we were like pretty much a Rage Against the Machine cover band.
Oh, that's amazing.
And we were called Homeland Insecurity. And this band was like started without me, but I was really into playing guitar at the time. And I was like, hey, like, can I join your band? And there was a couple friends who, were at school, one of which was Louis Diller, who like went on, he was in Holy Child. Yeah. And, they were like kind of playing like some sort of like a Halloween thing. I was like, hey, can I play guitar in your band? And they were like, yeah, you can play guitar as long as you sing. And I was like, all right, I guess I'll sing if you want. And then I sort of just like became more of a singer. Pretty much like, did the thing in high school. We were like playing shows like around town, and like everybody like knew us as like the band in high school and stuff. And we changed our name. It wasn't Homeland Insecurity. We changed our name to Panda.
That's probably better.
We changed it to Dizzy Balloon. We had some, name changes were happening. But that band was like the start of me just like really loving music and, seeing how you can like write a song and then like record it. And
when you say recorded, were you producing at that time? Were you renting studio space or working with someone else? What was that?
Fair. Yeah. So I think initially everything started with us producing it ourselves, like recording on Cakewalk.
Okay. Yeah. And I use Cakewalk.
Yep. There it is.
For like 2 years.
And then we met someone like some other band at a show told us about like some studio producer like in town in the Bay Area where I grew up, that like you pay them for like one day, you go in and you'll record the songs and they have like everything set up. And so we paid to do like, record a demo or like 3 songs with like live drums and everything, which we were not good at recording.
Yeah.
Because it was like a full, it was like a rock group.
Yeah.
And we went over there and like did these like 3 songs, like, we rehearsed them and we slammed them out in the studio. And the guy at the studio was like, oh, you guys like are pretty good. Like, I'd love to like work with you guys more. Like, don't worry about like paying me more. Let me kind of shop these around to like, these like local radio, like DJs that he knew. He was kind of like, older guy who like had relationships with like radio people, I guess. Yeah. And so we kind of like went in, recorded a few more songs seriously. And from that, we were able to like start playing like some bigger shows. And it's like, oh, like the Killers are coming to town. Like we're going to like open for them and like, play one of like 4, and then along the way, I was kind of getting more into like producing things, kind of like just like messing around with GarageBand a lot more. And when it came time to record like our album, we had met this other producer who was a mentor to me, this producer named Matt Rad, who lives in LA now, who also has a podcast.
Yeah.
And he was from the Bay Area. And he had like produced all the other like really poppin' local bands. And he was kind of like this like older figure who was a bit of a legend in the scene. And he had like come to shows. I forget if he was like introduced to us by somebody else or not. There was like this other producer, Johnny Genius, who we were kind of like working with. But we didn't really know what we were doing. You know, we were kind of like high school kids just trying to like make sense of it. But Matt Rad came into the picture, was like, hey, like, you know, let's record some songs a little more seriously. You know, he'd worked with this band, The Matches, and they were his friends, and they had gotten signed to like Epitaph, and like we had seen them. We're like, wow, this is like what can happen like as a band, like from the Bay Area. So he kind of jumped in and like recorded this album for us, like as a producer.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And he was also our manager, because he was like, yeah, I'm going to be a manager, and, you know, like, I believe I can guide you guys along the way.
Right.
Essentially, like, learned like a lot about production through that process.
Right.
But then the band broke up.
It's hard.
It's hard.
Being in a band is really hard.
It's really hard when you're like 17, 18. Like, there's so many egos at play.
There's egos, and like, but I've learned in being bands throughout the years that the ones that last, and this is really crude, but I think it's very true, is when everyone in the band kind of like knows their place.
That's interesting.
And
I like that a lot. Yeah.
Where it's like, you know, you think of a band like Coldplay.
Yeah.
Right? Where it's like Chris Martin is the band.
Yeah.
The other guys like know that like, okay, he's going to write the songs and we're going to have our input.
Yep.
But like ultimately like.
It's so true.
Right. And like even it was Queen's way of working, where it was like, if you wrote the song, like you got final say.
Interesting.
On everything. So they were like, you know, you need those like boundaries and rules. And like as 17 and 18-year-olds, like you just can't do that.
It's too hard. You don't understand. It's so true.
Yeah.
It really makes sense. Yeah. Also, like me at 17, like I was so like gung-ho on this band. I was like, I'm gonna be a rock star. Like I go to bed thinking about this band. Like I wake up thinking about this band, the songs. I'm just like always at the piano writing songs and being like, okay, what is like that right chorus for this? Like, anyways, the band breaks up. I'm gutted. You know, we're all like living at home and stuff. And like, I remember like,
well, you were kids.
We were kids, yeah. Like I remember going to my mom, and like my mom's like, what's going on? I'm like, dude, I think like Dizzy Balloon is breaking up. And I'm like crying. She's like, what? I'm like, yeah, like it's crazy. Things are finally happening, but like it just doesn't make sense. And like this and that. And I was like, all right, well, I guess, I don't know, like go to college and figure it out. Like, you know, see what that looks like, and go down to Santa Cruz and kind of like pick up the pieces of what this is. And then when I went to Santa Cruz, I essentially like fell in love with like production, or like I started really producing tracks because I wanted to make more music and there just weren't producers around.
Right.
So I just turned my garage into like a little studio. You know, I'm recording stuff and I'm calling Matt Rad a lot, our producer. He's in LA, and I'm asking him like, what the hell is compression? Like, what is compression? How does it work? You know, and if I'm being honest with you, I still am not 150% sure how compression works, but I really didn't know at the time.
Right.
And, you know, learning like these little details of, as well as, you know, going to YouTube and like checking all that stuff out. I was just like in the garage all the time, and it was like nice. I could go there at nighttime and stuff and just like play around and like experiment with like different things and plugins. And I think like at first, like when people get into producing, they're like really obsessed with plugins. Yeah. I was like really obsessed with plugins. You know, I'm like, all right, like what are all the coolest plugins I could find? And like, so it was good. It was like an exploratory phase, but that is what led me to coming down to Los Angeles, because like from all these conversations that I was having with Matt Rad, he was down in LA and he was like, hey, like, you know, I'm here, like I'm doing this seriously. This is where you need to be to, you know, become like a real producer songwriter. And I was like learning about what a producer songwriter is, because of course nobody knows what that is. Like when they're growing up, you know, they're just seeing these like singers in these bands. But I was like, oh wow, these people behind the scenes, like they're rock stars. Like how cool is it? They're working with like different people. And like, I also grew up loving pop music. Like I was kind of like the indie kid who was into pop. Like I'm like, oh, Petro, like, oh, Petro loves Britney Spears. Like, you know,
this guy.
And I'd be like, yeah, I do love Britney Spears, but like, you know, I also love Arctic Monkeys and Zeppelin, like, you know. So I was especially excited to like learn about, you know, Max Martin and all those people who were like making these records behind the scenes.
Isn't it crazy? Like when you first like learn about him,
it's
and
crazy.
You're like, wait, what? Like he's done all this. It's
insane.
Yeah.
that he exists.
Yes.
It's like, it's insane. More people need to know. It's a travesty.
Yeah. I mean, I remember I was in high school when I first learned who he was.
Yeah.
And like, I'm similar to you where I've always loved pop music. Like I love the Backstreet Boys and Britney Spears as like a young kid. And then I got into rock and stuff. But then, yeah, like I remember I looked him up and I was like looking up, I don't know, somewhere on the internet. I was like, oh my God. Like this guy has done all of my favorite songs.
It's like my favorite thing telling people who he is.
Yeah.
And like going through the catalog. I'm like, I just started listing things off. I'm like, can't feel my face. Shake it off.
He did some of those like big Bon Jovi songs in like the late 90s.
It's My Life.
Yeah. Like
100%.
Crazy. So
Dude.
good. Anyway,
Anyways, yeah. You got to get him on the podcast.
Yeah, I'll hit him up.
Yeah. Good guy. So yeah, that kind of like was really what got me into like producing and writing.
Yeah.
And then coming down, like kind of like learning how sessions work and stuff like that. But it did start from me being in a band and like recording our own songs. And I'm really grateful for that experience because so much of like learning how to be a producer is failing and making things of like, for example, we were recording these songs initially with like so much reverb on everything.
Yeah.
Like you discover a reverb and you're like, this is the hack.
Right.
Like I'm putting a reverb on anything. It sounds so professional. And then you learn like, okay, you actually can't put reverb on everything, but you really got to go through your reverb phase to get out of it.
You have to go through like everything, like the phase of putting a million plugins on every single
That's
thing.
another thing. So
over
many
EQing.
Over EQing.
Yeah.
Like everybody needs to go through the over EQing phase. It's a quintessential part of being a producer.
Yeah.
You learn a little bit about EQ. You're like, okay, cool. And then you learn about notch EQing. And you're like, oh my God, like this is how I become professional.
Yeah.
And you notch EQ the hell out of everything. And then you hear it the next day and you're like, this sounds like so tinny and weird. And what was I thinking?
Yeah. It's just so crazy where it's like, that's every producer's journey. And I remember I would just like sit there and find things to like cut out. And now it's like, if you open up any EQ, it's like, you'll find maybe in an entire record, like I notch out 2 things.
100%.
Like,
yeah.
And it's only, I'm like is a difference between what like so many people used to do, like you're searching for them,
yes,
versus like, oh, something
if you're
is hitting my
right.
It's like I'm hearing something that I gotta take
so
out,
true. Yeah. Only do it if it bugs you.
Right. It's so man, it's so crazy. Just it's every producer's same journey.
I
we
really
just have to do it.
Even more so than before. Just gotten so much more like focused on making the sound. Like making the origin of the sound like sound good in the room, and trusting that if you just hold the microphone up to that, it will sound good on the recording. Like, just like not overthinking. Like even with like an acoustic guitar. Like the other day, I think I was listening. It was that Troye Sivan song, "The Good Side."
Yeah, it's a great. Oh man,
great song, right? Great record.
Yeah.
And I was listening. I was like, okay, like this acoustic guitar sounds so good. I'm always like referencing this acoustic guitar sound. Like I'm going to like try and recreate the sound exactly today.
Yeah.
And I listened to it. I was like, okay, let's like recreate that sound. I got a U87 and an acoustic guitar.
Right.
And I listened to it and I was like, okay, great. Let's do this. Let's figure out where the placement is on this. Let's do that. So I listen to it and I play it and I strum it and I hear back and I'm like, okay, mine sounds like incredibly tinny compared to that. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, like, is the acoustic, okay, like a lot of parameters here. Like maybe they're running it through some hardware. Maybe like his acoustic guitar like sounds differently, or like he's got maybe it's like a nylon string guitar. Like mine is just sounding like really like tinny and like bright. Theirs sounds really dark and cool. And I'm like, I'm moving around the EQ stuff, right? I'm like, all right, maybe there's a way to do this with EQ. Yeah. Not quite getting it. And then it hits me. I'm like, you know what? He's playing the guitar without a pick. He's playing it with his like thumb.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, hold on. Let me grab the guitar. I'm like, could this be it? I strum it with the thumb. I record it. It sounds like exactly like the record. Yep. And I was sitting there. I'm like, oh, like this simple solution of like playing it with your thumbs instead of the pick gave it that really soft sound. And it really like just reminded me that like it's not in the EQ. It's in the performance in the room. Like make it sound like that like in the room and it will sound like that on the mic.
That's what I try and like live by, where it's always performance. If I could hire a great musician to play every single instrument, I would. Obviously, that's not realistic.
Yeah.
But we had, do you know Evan Blair?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had Evan here a couple weeks ago, and he gave really great advice where he's like, I love recording acoustic guitar like soft.
Yeah.
And,
Crucial.
It's just like so much easier to do. And you kind of also, I used to compress acoustic guitars and I don't anymore because now I try and compress it as I'm playing. Like when I'm playing it, unless I'm like doing something that's dynamic on purpose, where I want that dynamic change. It's like, nah, like
be smart,
like play it nice and easy and simple. And yeah, I'm just like obsessed with getting good sounds going into the DAW.
Yes.
You know, and that's made the biggest difference in all of my records, where it's like, okay, like everything already sounds great going in.
Yeah.
I just have to put maybe an EQ, maybe some multi-band compression, you know, on it, and then other creative things just because I want to fuck around with it. So I want to talk about a little bit about your process in production. You know, walk me through just like a regular session, like
great
songwriters coming over, you're writing the song, and to not completely finishing the record, but even to getting that first bounce. What's your process there?
It generally relies on how the artist wants to proceed.
Right.
You know, every song could be written differently.
Of course.
And I'm pretty like open to like the process of like the artist. So, you know, I'll be like, all right, what are we doing today? What's the vibe? What kind of thing are we thinking? And either, you know, the singer will say, I want to do something that's like a little soft, and I have like this lyric idea, and I have like a reference, and maybe I'll like grab a guitar and kind of start strumming some stuff, and they'll start singing, and like I'll kind of guide it, or maybe they'll just like sing it perfectly and it'll be golden.
Yeah.
Or they'll say, you know, I want to do something that's a little more upbeat, like a little more track based, and like kind of like have a reference or like a feeling, and I'll pop open Ableton and like start like laying some stuff down, you know, and sometimes I'll like play some like tracks. I'm like, oh, I kind of have this track that sounds like this. And, you know, like, oh, like I like this section, like let's scratch that section, let's build off of this.
Cool.
But more times than not, I feel like everyone wants to like start something fresh.
Yeah.
And like in those two paths, like if we look at the, like, let's build a track and write onto that path, that the process generally is starting with drums first, like always kind of finding essentially a groove. And then touching some things, like touching some synths and getting some sort of like a element that could be like a character of a track and getting a loop up so that like we can write to it.
Right.
And if we're doing more of a, you know, like singer-songwriter approach, I'm at the guitar or I'm at the piano, or they're at the guitar, they're at the piano, and I'm just like listening, like watching, like suggesting things as we move along through it. You know, definitely trying to flush out a song before like going too deep into production, like making sure we have like a chorus.
Right.
And
it's so fun. I work like the same exact way, because I think you're similar to me, where I consider myself a songwriter first.
Definitely.
That's my main focus. And I think sometimes when producers in sessions get too much in the sauce, it tends to like kind of like, not always, but like annoy songwriters.
So true.
Where it's like, so I don't know, like, because I used to do a lot of top line, I still do, where it's like, I want flexibility. I want to be able to like
it's a good point.
add a section or like have a chord change in there somewhere, and not just be like, well, this is the track. It's like, like, okay.
Keep it loose.
Right.
I'm all about looseness. Like, if you keep it loose, like who knows what could happen. Surprises.
Were you able to be like that when you were early on in your production career? Or did you feel like this, I'm speaking more for myself, that like I felt like I would really go in on production because I was like, I need to show these people I can do it.
No, another classic step to being a producer is like going too deep on the productions, like early on, for things that never see the light of day, and you're like, why did I spend so long on this? And maybe this was like you, but like when I first came down to LA, I was more focused on being a songwriter.
Same.
And like I was like, my production chops aren't like totally there yet, but I'm gonna be doing some writing. And I was doing like more sessions, like as a top liner, like writing songs, and like getting frustrated with some producers I would work with. I'd be like, oh, like this producer like kind of ruined this song, or like they don't realize like we really need like a drop down chorus. Like there's a reason why we needed a drop down chorus. Like, and from that, like I was like, okay, I'm gonna like learn more about production. So going into like every session, it does come, like you said, from that like foundation of like thinking of what's a good song and what's like the writing of this, and making sure that all the like parts are building into one another, from a verse to a pre to a chorus. Or if, you know, you're breaking that structure, it's like cool in a way that still is exciting to the ear. Not getting bogged down with productions is still like a thing I'm always like reminding myself.
It's so hard.
It's really hard. And especially like you said early on, I was like going in and just like making so many tracks and like things like that and flexing. And now I'm just like, the tracks just, they don't need to be like the greatest thing of all time.
Yeah.
If like the song is good and the track is like sort of unique, like that's a perfect record.
I've had so much more success with songs that like my demos, they were the least fleshed out.
Huh.
Where it's just
Yeah.
like, I'm obsessed about getting the vocal sounding great every time. I think
Nice.
that's very important. But, you know, it's like, same thing as you were saying before, like just getting a drum vibe going,
Yeah.
finding that main riff or that main sound,
Yeah.
and then just like creating some transitions just to create the movement, but like not really much more.
Yeah.
Just be like, here's the song, guys.
100%.
And I have no interest in producing out a B or C level song.
100%.
No one wins in that situation.
No one wins.
I've
It's not coming out.
yeah, and we all write B and C level songs all the time because
Yeah.
like that's just the process.
That's the average. Yeah.
But it's like understanding, you know, it's hard to know in the moment. I always in the moment in the session want to be excited about a song and I want to get everyone pumped about it
Yeah.
and want to think it could be the biggest
Yep.
song. But then I spend, you know, I'll get my bounce out that night or the day after and listen to it like a week or two later and be like, yeah, this isn't a great song.
100%.
It's a fine song.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not going to go any deeper on this unless someone like hits me
Unless
up.
they're like, yeah, this is
Right.
this is a priority.
Right. Because like, I love to be proven wrong all the time. Like, prove me wrong.
No, truly.
Please tell
yes,
me.
Yes.
And, you know, that's been a better work-life balance for me personally. Just like kind of hitting pause on when I want to produce something out.
Yeah.
'Cause-
I mean, I feel like I'll do a session and I won't really touch something unless the artist is like, let's keep working on this.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
But I'm not afraid anymore to be that guy when we're working on something and like, you know, keep playing the loop in the background for an hour
Yeah.
and like nothing's really happening. It's like, all right, guys, I think let's move on from this idea.
Let's move on.
You know, and
Even if you get like just like a little thing instead of
Yeah.
like a full song, like I'd much rather get like a little thing that's cool
right.
versus like a full song that's fleshed out and like lame. And I
Yeah.
think early on, like I was more focused on, all right, let's get that whole song done.
Yep.
Because that is like part of like earning your chops. Like you learn what it is to like write a full song
Yeah.
and like record a full
Yes,
song.
you need to do that.
And then you're like, okay, like I've been so focused on like writing and recording full songs that these songs are kind of like very mediocre.
Right.
And
You're just like checking
just
off that
checking
check
things
mark.
off.
Yeah.
so let's kind of like try chasing something that's really exciting, be loose about it.
Right.
And even if we get just a chorus, that's awesome. Like let's circle back, we'll write another verse, or like even if there's like some like instrumental vibe that we catch that like, you know, we can circle back to. I'm definitely not in a rush to like record a full song
No.
every session.
Yeah. It's just same thing. I'd rather get that one great thing, even if it's a great verse.
Yeah.
You know, and we're like,
Sure.
right? You know, it's
Yeah.
just like I'm just saying, like I want something that's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not something that's mediocre.
That's such a dance.
Cool. I want to move on, and I want to talk a little bit because it's so interesting to me about your journey into musical theater.
Sure. Let's go
I mean,
there.
I grew up going to Broadway. I've always
Yeah.
loved musical theater. Can you tell me a little bit how and with whom that got started, and what do you think you learned from that's brought that you can bring into like pop music production?
Sure.
As well?
Yeah. All right. So a little bit about me and musical theater.
Yeah.
Basically, I did not like grow up being too into musical theater. I was definitely an indie rock kid. But a few years ago, before the pandemic, I had a couple friends, my buddy Joey Orton and Brad Silnitzer. Joey Orton I grew up with, and he was in my high school band.
Okay.
He was in Dizzy Balloon, and he played keyboards in the band. And he and Brad kind of were like, yeah, we like are writing some like funny songs about Fast and the Furious. Can you help us like produce them out? And I was like, yeah, sure. Like let's produce out these songs and, you know, make time for this little silly thing. And then we did like a couple songs and they're like, you know what? Like we think we might like make a whole like kind of like a show for this, like a Fast and Furious like musical,
Right.
like a parody musical. We're gonna write more songs. And I was like, all right, like, you know, I don't know if I could like record tons of these songs and stuff. But let's keep chipping away at it and like, you know, let's build out some of these choruses a little more.
Right.
And like they're like at that point, like, all right, maybe, you know, you could help us like write more of these sections. But along the way, like the song started getting a little better and like we're having so much fun. I was like, all right, like I'm down to like team up with you guys and let's actually do this for real.
Right.
I don't know how serious you guys were, if they were gonna release like an EP of some of these songs, like, or actually do the stage show. But we sort of like teamed up officially in the way like, okay, the three of us are going to make a Fast and Furious parody musical.
Right.
And they had like the vision. They're like, yeah, we're going to like cast it. We're going to get like people like, and we're going to like all be dancing and stuff. And I was like, cool, as long as, you know, these songs are good, like I'll produce them and like play like piano and stuff and help write the songs. And so we did the thing, like, you know, booked a little like audition spot in Hollywood, like posted online, like looking for people to like be in this show, auditioned, you know, out of like 20, 30 people. And, you know, great singers and actors were coming in. They're like, yeah, I want to be a part of like some like thing like this, like as I'm auditioning to do other stuff, like this is like an interesting thing that seems fun. Yeah, we casted the gang and got the theater, then started doing rehearsals. You know, we were doing rehearsals at either Michael's office or like Joey's living room, and we like put the thing up. And, you know, and we've sort of been putting it up now every so often. It kind of like runs like not on a schedule, like when everyone is around to do it.
When you can do it, right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've put it up there like, you know, 10 or 12 times and sold it out every time.
Yeah.
And it's like a full hour and a half show with like, you know, 12 original songs, and I'm on stage playing piano. There's like 12 people in the cast.
Yeah.
They're dancing around, and there's props and everything. And yeah, it was a crazy thing.
I'm so excited. I haven't seen it yet, and I've been
we were
trying
just talking
to,
about it. Yeah.
And I'm so excited to see it. Like,
dude,
really.
It's a fun, silly little thing.
Yeah.
And it's a nice like break away from like pop songs.
Yeah.
It's just a different scene also.
I think too, just a quick little tangent here. I think what's so inspiring to me about that I think being in pop music, we kind of forget about is having fun.
Yeah.
And how
so true.
And how important that is. So much of the best art is made when you're just like, I don't know, let's just like see what this is.
100%. You gotta just see what it is.
Yeah, as opposed to just like overthinking, being like, well, like this big pop song did this, so I should do that too.
I've never ever had any success being like, let's make a thing like this and doing that thing like and pulling it off.
Yeah.
It's always, let's make a thing like this. You start and then it takes a turn. You like, I go to some synth patch and it's like, oh, but maybe, hold on, like that's kind of like a 90s EDM thingy.
Yeah.
Do that a little more.
Right.
And then before you know, it's twisted and turned, and like we ended up with like this totally different sound and style. Very rarely is it like, let's aim to do this. Great, we did it. It's done. It sounds great.
I can't do it.
I can't do it.
I can't work like that. And like, I'm the kind of person where like someone will come in with like, you know, like, oh, I got the briefs from the labels or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, sure, that's like good to know.
So it's loose start.
Okay, so I want to move on here. I want to start talking about some specific songs that you've worked on. The first song being Renee Rapp's Pretty Girls.
Yeah.
What's the story behind that? How'd you get involved with her project?
Let's get into it.
Yeah.
All right. So I work a lot with Alexander 23.
Who?
And he's one of my best friends and somebody I met kind of early on in Los Angeles and we've always like helped each other like learn more about production.
Yeah.
And I play in his band also. I play keys and I play bass in his band. So whenever he has shows, I'm there with him. It's a really nice partnership because we speak the same language.
Yeah.
And he, for Renee Rapp, had been working with Renee a lot and had made like a few songs, and they had written the song Pretty Girls with Skylar Stonestreet and Justin Traynor. And he was like, yo, like, Petro, can you help produce this out? Like, we got to produce this song out. Like, you know, the label likes this and here's what it is. Do you have any ideas? And it sounded completely different than how it sounds now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was really like, it was like a 1 day session. It was like, you know, like I wish I had a unrecognizable, different chords, like different it must have been like a, like, it was like a 4-1, like 5-6 thing. I remember, you know, he played it for me in his place and it was like, yeah, I don't know. We definitely made a choice. We're like, okay, we really gotta like coolify this song.
Right.
Let's get the song sounding really cool because the chorus is like really simple. It's just like one note. It's like in the AM on the and we're like, okay, like the song is gonna need like a pretty unique production to like stand out. We really just got to work. And I'm not gonna lie, that song took a lot of iterations and a lot of versions.
It happens.
And we're talking about like, you know, some songs, the song's there, like the production doesn't matter. But that song, like we really went in and tried lots of different things. And I think some of the references were like, you know, definitely want to make this like a little dancier. I was like listening to a lot of Madonna. I forget what all the references were. The first thing that like we kind of cracked was we were like, all right, let's look at like these verses and like maybe like strum some guitar. And I remember like grabbing a guitar and, you know, I would strum some things and they'd be like, this isn't really it. And then he would grab a guitar, he'd strum some things like, that isn't really it. And then he was strumming some sort of like a pattern. Maybe I was like on a piano and I was like, oh, maybe try these chords. And then if he was strumming them in a way that was interesting, we're like, okay, great. Like there's our new like verse progression.
Right.
And it's like definitely completely different, but it sounds tight. It's like more interesting, like a 4-1-5-6 progression. And we recorded it into the computer and we're like, okay, let's make this glitched out. Let's pitch it up an octave. And so we took like this guitar that was kind of like a da-do-da-do-da-do type of a thing. And like just hit the like, you know, up 12 semitones in Ableton. And it's like
does the cool Ableton thing.
Exactly. It does the cool Ableton thing. And we're like, okay, cool. This like sounds like a guitar, but it's like messed up, which I think is always such like a big part of like producing with organic elements is like using the organic element, but then like messing it up. But like making sure it came from like an organic place. And we were like, okay, this could be like the bed for the verse. And it took a while because I remember like going through the like loop of the gangu because it was really glitching and like it wasn't always a perfect glitch and like finding the like perfect loop where it does the gangu and is like tonal and not like
it's so funny that you have to like really
really got to get into the weeds a little bit once you do that manipulation. Then we were like, all right, the chorus thing, like, you know, maybe this chorus is maybe it's just like a kick drum like all the way through. Maybe we're just like doing 4 on the floor. Right. Because it really like the original version had like 808s. It was like it was really unrecognizable.
Yeah.
Unrecognizable. We're like, okay, maybe it's like a thumping thing. And then we played a lot with the chords. We're like, all right, like we really need to like reharmonize this chorus. Yeah. And for a while we were like, okay, maybe the whole chorus is like on the one chord, like and we stayed on the one. And then we're like, right, in the second half we'll open up into other chords and in the boo boo. But we like really threw like a few things out the wall.
Yeah.
Like threw like kind of some like funky guitars, like wows, some little guitar thingies. And then like played a lot on like at the time like he had the Juno 106 and we're kind of like doing some kind of more washy chords in the second half of the chorus. And that was like one afternoon. And after that, he was like, all right, like, take this home. Like, make some sense out of this. Like, we tried some stuff. And then I took it to my place and really went in a little more with like, okay, what do we have here? Let me figure out how to do like some like kind of vocal swells and like little transitional things to make it like sound sexy. But figuring out like all the drum stuff on the chorus was definitely a task. And I just remember like doing versions. And I would like send them to Alexander and be like, all right, this is cool. Like chase this a little more, chase that a little less. Right. Then we're like, all right, let's like work on it together this day. Like cool, come over to my place and would be on that chorus. And I remember like, we're like, okay, let's redo these drums. Like maybe this should be like more of like a Caroline Polachek drum thing where it's like a kick and like, you know, just like a live gotcha. And I remember we were catching that vibe and it was sounding pretty great. And I was into it. But I will say one thing about working with Alexander and that I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot working from him.
Right.
And one thing I've learned is how quick he is to like throw away ideas. Like we'd be rocking on a thing like, oh, this sounds cool. Like we got a thing, and they'd be like, nah, fuck it, scratch it. Like let's redo it. Let's try another thing completely.
Yeah.
And I'd probably be like, wow, we had like that was a pretty cool. Okay, all right, let's try a completely new thing. At one point, or like somehow like Dan Nagro had like heard the song and was like, oh, you know, like maybe the chorus drums, like, what if you guys went like digital on it? Like, you know, have like a little more of like electronic feel to it. And we were like, okay, yeah, that could be an interesting thing. Like, haven't thought of that. We were really chasing like this organic sound.
Right.
But then we like did the digital thing. And we're like, okay, what if like we get the bass and like we kind of do it like a da 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 da, almost like a Robin, like
dude, it's
like
so
a
funny.
bass.
I want to cut you off here because I said like love the song, was so inspired. by the turn of the production. Starts off kind of emo, singer-songwriter, then goes into a cool Robin-inspired
Truly,
production. Yeah.
like, and here's the thing, like, I love that Robin-inspired stuff, and Alexander loves that stuff.
Yeah.
And like, we joke about it all the time. We're always trying to get singers to do like Robin stuff. We're like, yeah, what if we did this like upbeat, like with like dancey stuff? And you know, it depends on the artist, but sometimes like, oh no, I kind of just want more singer-songwriter. Like, okay, that's cool too. Like, we'll chase that. We'll make it all make sense. But we definitely like took a choice. We're like, all right, we're gonna try doing this kind of like more like this like 80s-y Robin's dugga thing.
Yeah.
And I remember at one point, like our chorus, we were like jamming on the chorus at his place, and Andrew Spellman, his manager, was there kind of just like hanging on the laptop, and like we were like playing some stuff. And I think maybe like at this point I was like on like a bass guitar, and there was like a big moment when we were like, all right, you know, what if like we go to the 4 chord, like in this chorus where it's like, you know, so the chorus goes like, the pretty girls, they small
little change.
And we're like, okay, that's such a beautiful movement, because then when we go the pretty girls, in the second half, that was just like a big eureka moment. And I remember specifically because like Andrew Spellman was there. He's like, oh, like, it's crazy. That's all it is. It's just giving the 4 chord, like move to the friggin' 4 chord.
Yeah, it's one of the, you know, main things that we do in pop music. It's like, okay, how do we repeat this melody but give it different context? And it's like,
so true.
Right, change the chord. Now it feels different.
It makes, especially with like a 1-note melody.
Yes.
Like in hindsight, it's obvious that the chords need to be moving.
Yes.
We're like, okay, like there's a vibe. And, you know, back to like, I'm like, okay, Petra, like take this to your place, like flush it out more, like do some more like tweaks and noodles and things like that. And I remember taking it to my place and like working on it, and kind of like laying out the second verse and like kind of like adding new elements to the upcoming choruses. Right. And the song didn't have a bridge.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay, you know, it kind of like ends here. And at one point I was like, you know, what could the bridge be? What could like be a place we could take this in the bridge? I was on Splice, like scrolling through like beats or like loops or things and anything, and I heard this like break beat, and I was like, oh, what a fire break beat.
Yeah,
like this could be like, what if this was like on the chorus and like it wasn't stomping, it was just like this like sexy break beat. And I brought in the break beat, and I was like, oh, you know what, like this thing could be like an outro thing. We could kind of like keep this chorus going and like chop up the vocals. And it was kind of one of those moments where you really just like, you catch a wave of excitement.
Yeah, you just play.
And I blacked out, dude. And I like put in this break beat, and I like print these vocals down, and I'm like, oh, you know what? This could be kind of like minor outro. Like it could be the chorus, but it's kind of minor. And I was like, oh, and you know, maybe it has like a dark bass. And I'm like kind of pulling up kind of like a subby bass. And I start chopping up her vocals, and I love chopping vocals.
So
it's
much
like
fun.
a really, and another thing I skipped, like Matt Rad was somebody who like mentored me a lot, but also the Cataracts were these other producers from the Bay Area that like taught me so much, because when I came down, like they were more established and they were doing lots of like chop up vocals. You know, they produced like a G6 and stuff. Yeah. And so I was just like chopping up these vocals so that the ending, you know, it was basically her like chorus vocal, but like glitching out. Right. And then I was like also like pitching some stuff down in Ableton, like making it sound like digital and like kind of spooky, and built this kind of like outro thing. And I was like, all right, this is like a real departure from what the song is. Like, I don't know what Alexander and Renee are going to think about this, but like, I'm loving it. You know, like my roommates are coming in, they're like, oh, loving this outro. Like, dude, the outro's gotta be like more on the song. I'm like, all right, we'll see if this even makes the song. Like, after sending that, I remember like being like pretty like nervous, because like I'm like, it's
a big swing.
It's a big swing.
Yeah.
And Alexander's like, no, this is gonna be great. Like, you know, Renee's gonna love this. And like, you know, it ended up being like a huge part of the song. Yeah. And like it stayed in the song like exactly as is. And then for a while they're like, all right, you know what? We're going to actually like build out a bridge to another chorus. Then like we chased that. And then, you know, people were like, you know what? Like we're kind of missing that outro thing, that when there was like the version with that, the outro, that was like a moment. And obviously like ended up keeping that. And like, then she was like, you know, releasing teasers when it was like, so when the album came out, like the day of the album, it was like the single or focus track, whatever they call it. And they're like, you know, like the album comes out on Tuesday. Also, Pretty Girls comes out on Tuesday. Like, here's a teaser from the music video, and it'll be the outro. And cool. So it was like a really cool like moment to like honor that. Sometimes when you are chasing something, you really get lost in like the excitement of it. Yeah. That's just going to lock in. And there were so many like hours of like messing on the other parts of that song with me, or like me and Alexander were like, pulling teeth, like tweaking it to get it right. Whereas that outro, that really, it was done in like an hour and stayed as is.
You have to, what I tell a lot of beginner producers, and it's advice that I have to constantly give myself, where if like something is making you feel excited, like you have to just go for it.
Yeah.
Like go and do it and see where it takes you. And if it takes you nowhere, that's fine. You explored it, but then it like leads to like situations like that where it's like, I went in, I don't even remember doing it. It was just happening.
It was,
but those were the best. But I want to move on to the next song, Grace Enger's The Neighborhood.
There we go.
Really one of my favorites from you. And I think my favorite thing about the song is it's this build.
Yeah.
That just like keeps building. Yeah, I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff where I listened to it yesterday and today for the first time in a couple months. I loved it when it first came out, but I forgot that like, oh man, each chorus is really different. And like even in the choruses, you're like halfway through, you're introducing cool new elements. But I want to know, it seemed like just by looking at the credits that was something that you were brought into after once they already wrote it? Or
Grace had written that song and was, like a songwriter, like who hadn't really put out music, I want to say, but I knew her manager, Andrew Spellman, who was Alexander's manager, and he had hit me up and been like, yo, like, do you and Alexander want to like work with Grace a little bit? And I was like, of course, yeah, that'd be great. And she was like, yeah, so I've got this song. And we really like went in on that song. And I'm not gonna lie to you, there were a lot of versions of this one as well.
But I think been hearing that about Alex from you and from other people, that like I love that he doesn't seem to care about throwing something out.
100%.
I wish I did that more often, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I really admire him for doing that. I admire you for like being game to do that.
Dude, it's part of it. Yeah. It's 100%. And also like working with other people, like if people want to throw something out, I'm like, let's do it. Let's throw it out. Like I'm not gonna like fight for any. Like
I'm just save as.
You just save as. I'm constantly save asing, and I'm never going back. It's almost like just like a mental thing. Like, oh, let's try a new version. I'll save as because maybe later I'll go back to this one because you were wrong. But like I never do. They're always right. Yeah. Like like everyone's always like learning from each other.
Right.
That song specifically, I remember it started, and Grace like, so like I got this song, and here's me playing it on the acoustic guitar. I'm like, okay, great song. Let's figure out how to do it. And, initially we're kind of like talking about references, like Maggie Rogers is being thrown out, things like that. I earlier was listening to like some Julia Jacklin record. And I remember being like, I was just listening to this Julia Jacklin song. And like, she has like a cool thing where it is like an acoustic guitar, but it like sounds like it's distorted, or it's like an electric guitar but I think it's an acoustic that's distorted. And we listened to it like, okay, that's kind of like a cool sound. Grace was like, oh, I love that song. Like that's a good little reference. And we're like, okay, let's like kind of have that be the bed perhaps. Let's like lay some guitar in that style. And that was kind of the style of like the guitar that opens up the song. And that's kind of like playing, initially as the foundation.
Was it just like a DI'd acoustic, or you mic'd it?
No, it was amped. Yeah. Okay, everything always amped.
Okay. I love that.
Always amping. We lay that down and we're like, okay, like here's like a little bed. And from there, like started a world of experimentation.
Right.
Lots of different things that we were trying. And I remember specifically, on that chorus being like, all right, let's figure out some new thing that could happen. And there was like some moment where like Alexander like grabbed a bass and he was like playing like this like little like bass riff that was almost like, I don't know how to describe it. It was like incredibly cool. It was like boo doo doo wee woo boo, like this catchy like underlick type of thing. And then like we flipped it up an octave and we're like, oh, this is like a cool little thing on top of the chorus. And I was like I was like, oh, this is so fresh and Maggie Roger and like kind of like new Coldplay or like in a thingy. And Grace like, nah, like I'm not liking that thingy, And I'm like, all right, we're like, okay, all right, it's cool, it's great. Yeah. Get rid of that thing, get rid of that thingy. And then at one point we're like, all right, maybe like some whirly comes in. We're like playing on the piano, or playing like this little like whirly riff. And we're like, okay, that could be a thing. And then at one point, Alexander's like, I'm not really liking that thing. We're like, okay, great. We're getting rid of that thing. It's all good. Let's keep trying some stuff. And then at one point I was like, all right, what if like the big sub comes in on the chorus and like no new like tonal elements, but like it's like more of like a feel it thing. And we're like, okay, like, all right, that could be a thing. And like, it's not too harsh and it's like, it's a nice new element, but it isn't like getting in the way to a place that's like scaring anybody off. I feel like everyone was like really like, we were being like, I don't want to say precious because everything worked out, but it felt like everything was getting shot down.
Right.
And like at the end, like, you know, like if you listen now, like the new thing on the chorus is like a bass comes in. And maybe like there's like some soft like palm mute stuff like jump, which at the end of the day was like all it needed. You know, we're doing like weird like whirly riffs or like this like bass like riff thingy, which in hindsight like relax, like it doesn't need that.
Right.
Just let the song soar. And then like catching the groove was really tricky on that song because it's at kind of like a funky tempo and we like made a choice essentially in verse 2 to like, I'm pretty sure like I'd have to listen. I think it's like 4 on the floor. It's like, like there's like kind of like, you know, this type of a stompy thingy. And so we were like, all right, this is great for verse 2. Love a stompy verse 2. And I love like doing like if your first chorus doesn't have drums, like just like stomping in verse 2 or just in general, like whenever you can get away with just kick drum, like stomping away. Is really nice.
It's like that classic band thing.
It's a classic band thing. It's like a simple thing and it's not trying too hard. Yeah. And I think Pretty Girls, especially like verse 2 has kind of like a stomping thing. And like on Pretty Girls, I remember at one point like sending that to Alexander and we'd be like, yeah, you know, I kind of did a stompy thing in second verse. Like, I don't know if that's right. And he's like, no, I actually love the second verse drums. Like, great. Okay, good. Like, you know, you lose sense of everything as you're like tweaking so much. But we loved it in the neighborhood. And then when chorus 2 comes around, we were like, okay, we gotta have snare, right? Like it's chorus time. Let's put a snare there.
Right.
And we would put the snare, like it's like so what da 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 da. And we're just like that just doesn't feel right. Well, we know that there needs to be a snare here, right? Because like that's like a big element. Right. Like you want that thwap. And I'm not even kidding. Like we went back and forth on the snare in that chorus a lot to the point where they're like snare might have made it all the way to mix. And then like at one point we were like in Yanni's studio and we were like, you know, just mute the snare in that second chorus. Like it's got to go. Let's just keep it like thumping and have like other rhythmic elements like claps that are happening.
Right.
And, you know, we definitely did like, you know, get around the microphone and do like some live claps type of a thing. And we also did like some ham boning, which is like a thing that I learned about that day from Grace where you like hit on your legs.
I'm like one of the few people that call it ham boning.
That's fascinating.
I would be like, yeah, guys, you want to do ham boning? Everyone's like, what the fuck is ham boning?
I literally, so I actually called Grace on the way over here because I talked to you like, yeah, I definitely want to talk about the neighborhood. And I called her up. I was like, hey, like, so I'm going to do this podcast. I'm going to talk about the neighborhood. I'm like, do you remember any like anecdotes from like when we made this song? And she was like, well, definitely ham boning. Like, you definitely got to say ham boning. It definitely made it in the record.
Yeah.
And like, so you know, funny. It's definitely in there, probably.
Yeah.
But another thing in that song is there's like lots of little like synth elements.
Yes.
Like things that we like tried along the way that didn't last. Like, remember I said like there's like that little whirly riff that like we had that ended up becoming a thing that happens in the second half of the chorus.
Yeah,
there's like these like little stop, little like riff thingies.
It's really cool.
And we had them initially like in the verse and like obviously it was too much.
Yeah.
You know, it's distracting, but we saved like a lot of things. And I'm a big like saver. Like, you know, I say like lots of times like we're deleting stuff and trying new things, but like I'm just deactivating it. Yeah, exactly. And it's there. And I'm always reactivating it, trying to make it work and then like flipping it up an octave or like
seeing what it can do.
Yeah. So like a lot of like little like catchy like synthy stuff or like tonal things made their way into the final song as transitional elements. And yeah, I mean, like, what else happened in that song? Like, there's like a moment.
Well, I had a couple questions that I want to ask, a little bit more nerdy.
Yeah, please.
Is first really quick question was there are those like backing like vocal bums, like the bum.
Yeah.
Was that something that she recorded one of and you resampled it, or is that she recorded each one and you like cut them up? Do you remember what that
great question. Yeah. No, she did. She sang like dum bum 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 bum, and honestly, like most of them stayed pretty much as is.
Yeah.
She's a really good singer.
Yeah, you can tell.
And, you know, a couple were replaced, but it wasn't like, give me a pum and then like, we're going in like Ableton pitching them around.
Right. Okay.
She sang like the full part, and maybe a couple bums were like replaced, like, oh, this bum you did better, so I'm gonna put that there.
Right.
And that was another thing that like we're like, all right, maybe this is the thing at the top of the song, like this is the bum song. But we're like, no, actually this is the thing that'll come in like halfway through the verse, or it was like an element that was like saved. And I remember like there was like a whole debate in the studio, like, is it going to be bums? Is it going to be laws? Is it going to be das? And I forget which one it actually is. It was bums. Yeah, it's bum at the end. Yeah. And I think Grace was like, it's got to be bum. And we were like,
bums are nice because it's just like bum. It just like EQs differently than like a la.
Yeah,
it's like, la. You're able to like put it in the background.
Bum. Yeah,
a little bit more.
So true.
People don't think to do like hums and stuff, but it's like sometimes that's.
I
what
love
you
a
need.
hum.
Yeah, it's hitting a different frequency point, and you're like naturally muting it.
Yes,
like with your mouth.
100%.
It's really great. The other question I wanted to ask too about this is, what's your favorite way or most common way how you're recording guitars and getting them to sound great?
Let's get into it.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to lay it out.
Okay.
So here's the thing. I grew up like playing guitar and piano, like writing songs on them. And I never really like knew how to record them. And I was doing like a lot of like, plugging in the guitar DI and like learning about like Guitar Rig and kind of like figuring out like all those like the digital emulators. But working with Alexander specifically, I became a big boy and I started recording an amp, and it changed my life.
Yeah. And
so now like everything comes out of the amp, everything like runs through my pedal board, and it's a lot more exciting. It's like, it helps me come up with like interesting parts because I'm not dealing with any latency. And it's also fun to like be turning knobs, and there's really like a sense of danger that comes from that there isn't when you're doing all the emulations. Like the emulations like are fun and they're great, and I've like gotten some great tones, and occasionally I'll still use that if you need like something like really up close,
right?
For some reason. But for the most part, you're kind of clicking through, and everything like feels flat because it's like pre-made for you. Whereas when I plug into like, my pedal board through the amp, like from the jump, like I'll strum a chord and like it might be too loud because I previously set like this like chorus pedal, like volume, like really high. I was recording something. I'm like, oh, whoa, hold on. Like, let me turn that down. But like, hold on, that was exciting. Like it kind of hit this next pedal in a way I wasn't expecting. And all of a sudden, like I have like a new idea of like, oh, what if there's like guitar stabs that are hitting there, like at the tops of the chorus. And I just generally love like turning like those knobs, especially like in a session. Sometimes someone's like, yeah, let's get grittier with it. I'm like, great, cool. Like I'm going to turn up this fuzz pedal a little bit, or like I'm going to like hit the whammy pedal. I'm going to take that down an octave, and like seeing kind of like these like live changes to the tone often inspire like what the part is going to be. And that was like, it's really helped for me. And I feel like so much of like production is like going through like waves of like a process where you're like, oh, I'm like really into this now. And then like a year later, you're like, I actually learned I'm not into that now. And like the trick is this.
Yeah.
But it really has changed my life and like my records, like having like an amp as like a really strong tool to do guitar stuff, and also using different guitars and understanding that guitars do sound different.
Yep.
And that was like a thing that was hard for me to learn because, when I was younger, I was like, dude, it doesn't matter. Like the song is all that matters.
Right.
Like get a really like well-written song on top of guitar. Like the choice is either guitar or synth. What do you mean? Like what type of guitar? Like relax here. Like you're getting the weeds, but it does matter.
Yeah.
And like, now like going in there, I still laugh at myself because I remember like being 13 years old and like not caring about snare drums, and like producer would be like, oh, like what should the snare drum sound like? Guys, it doesn't matter. It's a snare drum. But now I'm like, dude, the snare drum is so
snare drum.
important. Like I'm like, it gives a character of the song. Like, is it a thuddy snare drum? Is it more of a hip hoppy snare drum?
Yeah.
And like, there's those choices you can make that like really like build the character of a song. And I think the guitar tone is a big part of that. And so, yeah, I'm a big amp head essentially.
I love that. One quick question about that. Then I want to move on to our next segment. Is what's your desert island overdrive or distortion pedal that you would? You don't think you could live without?
Yeah, this is like always on full tone OCD.
Oh yeah, I know that. Yeah, that's a great one.
This thing is just a true little baby.
Yeah,
and it, Yeah, it just sounds really nice.
Amazing. I've used that guy before. It's great.
Yeah.
It's one of my
It's
favorites.
not like that like crazy. It's not like an insane sound or anything.
But it does the thing really well.
Does the thing really well.
Yeah, that's like what I mean. That's why I have a classic tube screamer.
Sure,
I'm like,
100%.
Like I know it does the thing.
Yeah,
and it's always going to do the thing.
Totally fair. I got a tube screamer on my board as well, and I'll crank it up if we want that thing.
Right, when you want it.
Yeah.
Okay, so like I said, I want to move on to the next segment here called Plug or Unplug.
Fun.
Plug if it's a plug-in or piece of gear that you love. Unplug if it's something that you've used that you're not really into.
Funsies.
You know, it's a taste thing, not a hate thing. And bypass if you never really used it or you don't know too much about it.
Fantastic. All right, so just to go over it again, the options are plug in. I'm into it.
Just plug.
Oh, plug.
It's so funny. You know who also like it was?
Let me guess.
Yanni.
He
was like, it's plug. And I was like, it's plug, but close.
Yeah, loving it.
So
loving it.
Plug, unplug, and bypass.
Love. Plug, unplug, and bypass.
Yes. All right. First one being one of the most commonly used microphones, an SM57.
I mean, come on. It's fantastic. Plug.
Yeah.
I have it on my guitar amp right now.
That's what.
Yeah.
Do you have that and the 88 kind of always on it, or what?
Nope, I misspoke earlier when I said 88. It's a 57.
Okay, 57.
Yep.
Okay, there you go.
Yep.
So the 57. Yeah, I have a 57 in my R121. I have like that dual mic holder there that like holds both.
Nice.
That'll kind of be like kind of quickly switch back and forth or get both.
Oh, interesting.
If I want. Yeah. It's nice. I mean, I love blending them. Like you get that nice brightness from the 57 and like a roundness.
Sure.
From ribbon mic that. That's my favorite combination. Fun. I also just like darker things.
Yeah.
SM57, the classic.
SM57, no doubt.
Guitar pedal here. The Big Sky, like reverby plugin.
Yeah,
not plugin. I'm sorry. The
delay,
pedal.
The pedal thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I think I have one.
Yeah.
And I haven't really used it. And actually, well, that's not true. It's not even mine. It's my buddy's, but it's like been on my desk for like a month it's kind of a little daunting. I haven't like plugged it in much.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give it I'm going to unplug, baby.
Yeah.
I'm being harsh with this.
I don't like it. Every time I've used it, it's just like, and it's kind of a joke, but like it feels very churchy to me. And like, not that there's anything wrong with that, but like not for me.
Yeah.
And I'm also one of those people where if I want like a big reverb like that, I usually want to do it in the box.
Okay.
So I can control, unless I'm like playing into it.
Yes.
But if it's something where it's like, okay, I know this part, I'm just strumming a guitar chord.
Yeah.
Let me do the reverb in the box. I can have so much more control and like blend it into the mix better. But that's just my take on it.
Fair it is. No, we've unplugged it. It's dead.
Yeah. Next plugin, a classic. Sound Toys Phase Mistress.
I'm saying it right here on the air. Petro is unplugging Phase Mistress because I recently found the best phaser plugin.
Okay.
This is like the ultimate sound that like I feel like everyone is always craving when they want phaser and it's called, what's this thing called? I want to say like it's like DDL phaser or DDS but it's some plugin like you can get online for like $28 or something.
Okay.
And they've recreated the phaser from this like really famous like multi-effects box that was from like the 90s, I want to say.
Okay.
And like it was very well known for its phaser sound and like a lot of like records like used it. And like a couple dudes were like, we just want to create a plugin that does just that. And I got it and I'm throwing it on everything. It's giving it like that Calvin Harris, like when he does like the phaser, the Justice-y, like kind of that like that really warm phaser. And like just like the initial setting, you turn down like the initial setting has like delay on it for some reason. You turn that off, but it's like set to like 30% mix. And it's like the perfect phaser. All these years I've like tried getting with Phase Mistress and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I like can't quite catch it.
It doesn't do that specific phase thing that
you want.
It does other things that are cool.
I'm telling you, this plugin does it.
I'm gonna check it out. Probably end up buying it.
Yeah. I'll give you the code, dude.
Okay, know myself. Next, classic guitar.
Let's go classic
that I find people have very...
let's get polarizing.
Yeah, polarizing takes on. Just a classic Fender Stratocaster.
Come on. Who doesn't love a Fender Stratocaster? I got one right now at home. Yeah, I got two in the studio.
I have one, and I hated them for years.
Yeah, I think they're great. Yeah, definitely plug.
Yeah, I'm on like the middle because it's like if I'm making music just for me, almost never picking up a Strat.
Okay.
I'm a Telecaster guy. I like warmer sounding guitars, but being a producer where I do multiple kinds of things, it's like sometimes you just need that Strat sound.
Yep. 100%.
That's like nothing else can really do what a Strat does.
It's got a sound.
Right. So this next plugin is a plugin that we ask everyone on the podcast.
Oh, let's do it.
We live in the controversy.
You get mixed answers on this one? I'm just curious.
Yes.
Good.
It's all over the place. That's why I love it.
I'm like, you know what? I have a hunch. I could guess what you're going to ask because I talked to Yanni because he was on CLA vocals.
CLA vocals.
All right, man. All right.
What's your take?
My take is absolutely pro. And here's the thing. I use it. Lots of times I do use it and it sounds bad. Right. And then like later I'm like, this is sounding bad. But like, Lord knows that helped in the moment. It like moved the production forward. Yeah. And now I do have to redo this. I have to bypass this and figure out what the chain is on this thing.
Yeah.
But it certainly does a good job.
It does the thing.
It does the thing.
All right. So last plugin is a plugin that
let's go there.
That almost everyone should use.
Okay, I'm liking the setup.
Not should use because it's great, but just should use because it's...
learn or go through the process.
Right. Another Waves plugin, Arvox.
People be loving that plugin. I never had an Arvox phase.
Okay.
So it's not in my wheelhouse.
Right.
But I would like to.
Yeah.
I think it's a great plugin, and a lot of people I respect use it for like a quick, good sound and it almost like might be like a better version of like CLA vocals. Like it does a lot.
It does a lot. I mean, it can do a lot or it can do a little.
Yeah.
The gate on it is really nice.
Okay.
I use it. I don't use it on lead vocals anymore.
Okay.
I'll use it it's on my scratch vocal track.
Sure.
Where it's like, okay, I can just throw this on and like kind of compress it too much just so we can like in the room hear what we're doing. And then once we cut the real vocal in like an hour, take it off. But It's also, it lives on, and I don't always use it, but it lives on all of my backing vocals.
Okay.
Where it's I didn't compress this enough going in. And I can just like pull down one lever.
Done. It's easy.
And like, okay, now they're compressed. And it's like, it's a backing vocal, so I don't care if it's like a little bit over compressed.
Of course.
Because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And it's so low CPU.
I like that a lot, actually. Yeah.
It's like, it's in my template on every backing vocal. It's there for me to like quickly turn on.
I got to get into Arvox a little more.
It's good
I
for
like
that.
what it stands for.
Yeah. It's in my opinion, it's like perfect for that. I understand why people don't like it for like a main vocal because it can like pull it down in a way, but
I mean, the lead is such a delicate thing.
Yes. Yeah. But dude, unfortunately, we have to end here.
100%.
I've taken up far too much of your time. It always does.
No, this is awesome.
No, dude, it's always great.
I hope I didn't come off crazy.
Oh, shut the fuck up. Get out of here.
Nice.
Dude, thank you so much. But and we can cut this part out. But do you have anything that you want to mention, like releases or things that you're excited about that you want to plug before we wrap?
Got nothing.
That's fine. Most people don't.
Yeah, of course. Check out my new single. Like,
coming out next week.
Hopefully these songs come out with these artists. Like, like Demi Lovato, I got a couple in the mix. Please be coming out.
We'll see what happens. No, dude, again, thank you. Always lovely seeing you.
Justin, I love you, man. I'm in love with you. I'm so excited for this podcast. And I genuinely, I said this to you as soon as I got here. I was like, I'm so like stoked to listen to these episodes.
Yeah.
I just love this stuff. And I also think like you're going to be asking cool questions and like you're like really in there, you're in the weeds. So you interviewing other like producers and music makers is going to get like those answers that the producers and music makers want to hear.
Oh, dude, I'm asked because I'm asking questions I want to know.
You want to know? I'm jealous. Like this is so cool. You get to like talk to people.
Well, you don't have to be jealous because you're going to get to listen to all of
Dude, I cannot wait. I want them early.
Oh my God.
Well, I'm really stoked. So
I'll
thanks for having me and thanks for doing this.
Thank you so much. All right, guys. Thanks. Take care.
Peace.